So J.K. Rowling basically completely dedicated her existence to being transphobic. Nobody cares about her books. Nobody reads her new books. Nobody cares. So J.K. Rowling does what billionaires should be doing with their free time, which is screenshotting 5 view, 0 like, 0 retweet, 0 comment tweets to complain about on her platform. Very normal. The Nazis burnt books on trans healthcare. This is true. And research. Why are you so desperate to uphold their ideology around gender? Good question. J.K. Rowling responds intelligently. I just... How? How did you type this out and press send without thinking? I should maybe check my source for this because it might have been a fever dream? The person she screenshotted is a Vowshitan in the Discord, by the way. No kidding! This is one of ours. Haunting her ever forward, huh? Well done, team. So, what exactly do you think J.K. Rowling takes issue with here? The idea that the Nazis burnt books on trans healthcare and research, something that is not only an unambiguously accepted historical fact, but something for which we literally have photos. Like, you know, a lot of those famous photographs of Nazis burning books, a lot of those are just directly from one of the first, largest, and most important, you know, like massive book burnings, which was the Institute of Sexology back in 33. You know, a whole bunch of writings on how you can like slap dicks against each other. They invented frauding over there, I hear. The Nazis didn't want people to learn about frauding, so they you know, did all this. This tweet could be censored in Germany. German courts have ruled that the Nazis did in fact persecute queer people. It would be pretty impressive if the German courts had ruled otherwise, considering it's a well-known historical fact, you know? Anyway, it continues. So Alejandra responds, you're engaging in Holocaust denial, Joanne, which she is. People like to waffle about the definition of Holocaust denial versus Holocaust revisionism. To be clear, I have never liked the definition Holocaust revisionism because, for one, revisionism is what real historians do to any subject when they go back and look at it. Revising history is a part of being a historian. That's a part of the process. Holocaust revisionism, to me, has always sounded kind of like semantically weird. Like, what do you mean by that? Because the process of categorizing and learning about and everything in the Holocaust, like, that was revisionism. It was just well-informed revisionism. It was revisionism informed by facts, right? Whereas to me, like, does Holocaust denial just mean you literally don't think it happened? Because if that's the case, that to me sounds like you can only be called a white supremacist if you're literally on the streets marching with like a big megaphone screaming, I believe whites are superior, blah, blah, blah. Like, it sounds to me like you're setting the bar really high. The vast majority of Holocaust deniers don't just say the Holocaust didn't happen. They say that they either minimize the count of people dead, they say that it was necessary, they say that actually it was caused in large part by Allies bombing train supply lines and people starved because of the Allies, actually. You know, never mind how like 10 million people got in camps that they all died in and ended up in, what were those showers? Never worry about it. Like, they built all of those for funsies. Actually, in reality, it was because the Allies bombed the trains, and somehow the guards had food to eat and they didn't die, you know, right. So Holocaust denial is often not just like saying it didn't happen at all. It's often just a way of advancing hate against a group targeted by the Holocaust. And one of the ways that they do that is either by denying they were persecuted or minimizing the persecution. And what Joanne is doing here is apparently minimizing the persecution. Not the first time, by the way, actually. If I recall correctly, what's that one guy with the freaky big head? The really ugly one. The guy who went on Mumsnet to say, oh, these transgenders sure are a right old bag of dicks, aren't they? And then all the women there were like, get out of here, man. Glinner? Yeah, Glinner, thank you. I remember, like, a while ago, I don't remember exactly what it was. If somebody could find me the tweets, I'd appreciate it. But he was also downplaying the idea that the Nazis killed trans people, right? And one of the ways they tend to do that is they'll say, like, the Nazis didn't kill trans people because trans people don't exist. They actually just killed people they thought were sexual degenerates. Also, they think trans people are sexual degenerates. So it's like you're just doing the thing. It's that thing conservatives do where they'll say every single trans person is a groomer, and then they'll say, like, I think we should put all groomers in a camp. And then you say, reasonably, why do you want to put all trans people in a camp? And then they say, why are you the one assuming I mean trans person when I say groomer? They want you dead, is my point. Like, it's a largely ineffective and weaselly rhetorical tactic because they don't have the stones to defend their positions. They want you dead. That's the point I'm getting at here. You know, you get me. States' right to do what? Yeah, exactly. Anyway, so Alejandra says you're engaging in Holocaust denial, Joanne. And J.K. Rowling says, neither of your articles support the contention that trans people were the first victims of the Nazis, or that all research in trans healthcare was burned in 1930s Germany. You are engaging in lying, Alejandra. And then Alejandra responds with, I know reading is hard, but where did anyone say they were the first victims or that they burned all books? The facts are that trans people were targeted and that the Hirschfeld's Sex Institute was sacked by the Nazis and its contents burned on May 6, 1933. To which J.K. Rowling responds with a screenshot of a different tweet that presumably also has no views, no likes, no comments, no retweets. You not knowing that trans people were the Nazis' first targets does not make telling you about it a fever dream. We lost basically all research in trans health because the Nazis burnt it all down. So this statement that she moved the goalpost to, because this is a different tweet that she's now complaining about, is 90% correct. If by Nazis' first targets as trans people, you mean like they were one of the first big groups the Nazis really went after, yes, that's true. I mean, the burning at the Institute of Sexology, that was from 1933, right? I mean, that was 6 years before World War II started. It was, I mean, it's not a race. It's not a competition. It's not like, fire the starting line pistol. Who's the first one to get Holocausted? It's pretty up there. We lost basically all research in trans health. That's kind of true. The Institute of Sexology was remarkably ahead of its time for, well, sexology, I guess. Trans, queer health, that kind of stuff. It wasn't literally all research in the world, but it was a lot, it wasn't just like a random bookstore or anything. A lot of that knowledge existed only in that building. Oh, was this the Glinner thing I was thinking of? Eddie Izzard, quote, I'm a trans superhero, but if I'd lived in Nazi Germany, I'd have been murdered for it. That is true. Nazi Germany did murder trans people. They were sent to the camps and the gas chambers. That is correct. And Glinner's response to this is, yes, the Nazis, famously bigoted against straight white men with blonde hair. Which kind of tells you, I would consider this Holocaust denial. The essential argument here is that, they couldn't have sent you to the camps because the thing that they would have persecuted you for, they would have called it sexual degeneracy, I imagine, doesn't really exist. There's no such thing as being trans. The only reason you would do or say this is to obfuscate the category and minimize the oppression of trans people. Because the problem that people like J.K. Rowling are going to keep running up against over and over and over again is that their position on trans people just isn't that different to the position that Nazis have on trans people. It's not really surprising. Sean, the YouTube channel Sean, has, I think at this point, 2 videos now that are about associates of J.K. Rowling and how often she just openly pals around with the far right. Posey Parker, the Nazis who Sieg Heiled at her thing in Australia, the people from far right political institutes that she's gotten along with, and the position, and I would know because I've been online for a while and I see what people say of Nazis with regards to trans people is that they are, you guessed it, sexual degenerates, and the position of J.K. Rowling is that they are sexual degenerates. Now, J.K. Rowling doesn't really use the term degenerate. Instead, what she'll say is deviant, perverted sexual freaks who are mentally ill and prey on women, which is what a Nazi would call a sexual degenerate. This is an entirely a semantic distinction. The actual category that's being applied here differs only in the terms used for it. The category itself is identical in either case, which means that as long as J.K. Rowling holds this position, or these positions on trans people, people are going to have to ask her, questions she really doesn't want to have to answer. They're going to ask stuff like, hey, why are you so desperate to uphold their ideology around gender? Thank you, fellow Vashite. And then she gets to embarrass herself with stuff like this. Now, what I think happened personally, what I personally believe is that J.K. Rowling wants trans people dead. I think this is well substantiated by her behavior. And I think that when she saw this, she did what she so often does, which she, not to paint a stereotype here, but emotionally, perhaps after having swigged some wine, she looked at this and she got flustered and she crafted a response to, sick her followers on it, get, rally people up. And Only after actually posting the tweet, reflecting upon this and how it looks, does she now realize, wait, nothing here is inaccurate. I mean, she could argue against the subjective determination that she is upholding the Nazi ideology around gender, but the supportive argument here on Nazis burning books on trans healthcare and research, that can't be argued against. So she does the goalpost moving thing, where she pretends she was actually responding to a different tweet. I'm just guessing. I can't read her mind. She tweeted some other stuff too if you go to her profile/replies. Oh, how could I not? One moment. The second tweet she screenshotted has 20 likes. 20 likes, my God. We the WPath files, Medics. Oh, this is about the UK banning puberty blockers for youth. Okay. This is about that as well. I know all about Hirschfeld. Are you sure you want to make him a poster boy for trans medicine? The man who believed in sterilization of the unfit. Strawman. That's response. The thread has sources. Please show your evidence that trans-identifying people were persecuted as distinct from gay people who were indeed victims of heinous treatment by the Nazis. Oh, yeah, there you go, right there. There you go. Yeah, picture perfect. Literally, like, exactly how I characterized her argument right there. The Nazis didn't go after trans people. The Nazis went after gay people, you know? But trans people don't exist, so how could they have gone after trans people, you know? It's not particularly distinct from gay people, that's the point. Yeah, because Nazis lumped a lot of people together as sexual degenerates, and J.K. Rowling also lumps a lot of people together as sexual degenerates. It's a common argument. Yeah, it is. Such faux outrage. Nazis went after gay people, not trans. Goring was trans by today's standards. This person is the TERF. Hearts. Remarkable. OP said they weren't even replying to a JK tweet. She just, like, looked randomly. German court has found the Nazis did indeed target trans people. Oh, yeah, perfect, perfect, from Katie Montgomery. The Nazis didn't target trans people. They only targeted gay men and degenerates. Trans doesn't exist. It's just a bunch of gay men and degenerates. Yeah, literally, exactly that, yeah. I mean, more of this, please, honestly, from J.K. Rowling. Abandon all of the euphemisms. Abandon all of the pretense. Just do this. Just, like, the open Holocaust denial is, you know, much more clear-cut. Thread on the persistent claims about trans people and the Nazis. Love my billionaire children's book author posting stuff like thread on the persistent claims about trans people and the Nazis. And this is all just Holocaust denial, right? The LGBTQ plus lobby likes to claim trans people were a key target of the Nazis. They weren't. In fact, trans healthcare was pioneered by a champion of eugenics and a surgeon who designed experiments in Dachau. His victims were not trans. This is, I like, leaving aside the extent to which this is probably obvious factual, you know, misinformation, which I don't even care to get into. It's also not relevant to the claim of the persecution of trans people. It's like, I guarantee you that if the what was that psycho doctor at Auschwitz? The one everyone, the one like every name, everyone knows his name. The Mengele. Yeah, if Mengele had done some like twisted up no anesthesia experiments where he was like twisting dicks around or something, modern TERFs would call him the first bottom surgery, you know, expert, and they would say to trans people, "Did you know that transgender women were invented by Mengele? Yeah, sorry, Mengele." In Auschwitz, you know? They would do that. I mean, they kind of are doing that here. Are they arguing Nazis didn't actually mind trans people? It's like, as is often the case with hate groups, they have a bizarre and incoherent cluster of beliefs that don't actually work with each other. Like, a lot of them are incoherent or mutually exclusive. The only purpose of these beliefs is that it advances hatred of a group. That's it. Like, you could spend all day examining this. Like, you could spend all day, how can J.K. Rowling claim that she's a feminist, but then openly work with anti-feminists, right? How can J.K. Rowling say that, like, you know, trans people weren't persecuted by Nazis, but then say that actually trans people were just grouped in with gay people who were persecuted by Nazis, but then somehow that doesn't mean that they were persecuted? Like, the only answer is because they want you dead. You have to understand that. It's really that simple. Good job, Vaushite community broadly, well done. Love to get the washed up children's author posting stuff like, let me link to a 8-month-old Twitter thread on how actually the Nazis liked trans people or whatever else. Very good, very good. New research reveals how Nazis targeted transgender people, and it continues to this day. The author of a 1938 book on the problem of transvestitism wrote that before Hitler was in power, there was not much that could be done about transgender people, but that now in Germany, they could be put in concentration camps or subjected to forced castration. That was good, he believed, because the asocial mindset of trans people and their supposedly frequent criminal activity justifies draconian measures by the state. Nazis may have lumped in all people they considered sexual degenerates, but that doesn't mean they didn't distinguish between people they considered transsexual and people they considered homosexual. Like, Nazis today do that. Nazis today lump together queer people as like a broad degenerate group, but that doesn't mean they literally can't distinguish between gay people and trans people. Like, it doesn't rob them of their ability to make these categorizations. As much as J.K. Rowling may protest, she can clearly distinguish between gay people and trans people because she pretends to like one group while actively advocating for hate against another. Literally calling themselves draconian. Yeah, the Nazis were bad guys, as it turns out. Do you think she actually believes what she's saying? I think that J.K. Rowling is, at least with regards to, how do I put this? J.K. Rowling isn't a fascist. She's a neoliberal broadly, but reactionary thought trends itself towards both sincerity and anti-empiricism, much in the same way that a person can be, like, you can have a person who's so racist that they start believing like mutually contradictory things. It's difficult to know whether or not a person is being sincere or like openly lying or having a woman moment, anything could happen really. It doesn't matter, ultimately. She's a billionaire, she's very powerful, and she's using her spare time and attention to, find literally who tweets from my community, no disrespect to the person who made that post, to preach Nazi propaganda. Not much else to be said, except for the next time this happens, when I'll say a lot of this stuff again. Why does it seem like TERFism always rots people inside out until there's nothing left but bigotry? Well, I think for a lot of TERFs, and there aren't that many TERFs, mind you, keep in mind, like, J.K. Rowling isn't really a TERF because you have to be a feminist to be a TERF. She uses TERF rhetoric from time to time, but I really don't think it's a large group of people. I think a lot of women, in particular, hate and resent men for our strength and our violence, and it's not really socially acceptable to express that in a lot of ways because, A, a lot of these women are straight, which means that they'd be excising themselves from their, preferred demographic a bit. And B, what do you get as a woman for being an open man-hater? Very little, as it turns out. Society affords very little to these types of people. However, if you believe that trans women are men, and you believe that trans women are sort of mimicking femininity as a way of preying on women, or if you convince yourself that's the case, I think that you can unleash a lot of that pent-up misandry, misdirect it, and sort of like weaponize it in the way that they have. I think that a lot of this is a kind of like roundabout redirected misandry, which I'm not, this isn't just me like waffling. J.K. Rowling literally says this. TERFs are always saying this. They constantly frame their attacks on trans women as attacks against men. They just think that trans women are going the extra step to be predatory. But a lot of TERFs are also like basically MGTOWs, except the other way around. WGTOWs, women going their own way. Political lesbian, that's the term. Like Andrea Dworkin was a political lesbian and never actually hooked up with any chicks and married a gay man. Lovely lives. Didn't Rowling admit a lot of her feelings on trans people came from her abusive ex? Yes.